Have you ever left a conversation thinking, why didn't I say what I really felt? And you know it was not a communication issue, but a self-trust breakdown. And when there's a self-trust breakdown, intimacy quietly disappears. Because we think intimacy is about finding the right people, but intimacy collapses the moment we stop trusting ourselves. Welcome, beautiful soul. This is Midlife Butterfly, the space where you remember who you truly are beneath all the roles, responsibilities, and expectations. I am your empowerment guide, Ken as you, and I hold this space for women in midlife who are ready to rediscover themselves, reclaim their joy, and live fully aligned. If you are new here, welcome to our cocoon. You just entered a place where choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's sacred. So let's take a deep breath, drop into your heart, and let's dive in. When we talk about intimacy, most people immediately think about sex or romantic relationships. Does this resonate with you? And I want to widen in this. Because intimacy is that moment in a conversation when you feel met. When someone looks at you and you don't feel like you have to adjust, when you are not performing, when you are not filtering your truth. And here's what I learned the hard way. Intimacy is not a lack of love. Intimacy is the lack of self-trust. There was a time in my life when I stayed in a relationship, and the last few years, I knew something wasn't aligned. There was still a lot of love. There were still good moments. But there were also those red flags that I kept ignoring. And I told myself, he will change. Or that one day he will be ready. Or that maybe I was expecting too much. And what that really was me not trusting myself. Not trusting what I felt, not trusting my discomfort of staying in that relationship, not trusting that quiet voice that said, this isn't it. Have you ever heard it? And I remember moments where my throat would tighten in conversations because I wanted to say something honest, but I didn't. I couldn't. Because I didn't want to rock the boat, because I didn't want it to be rejected. I didn't want to lose love. So I stayed quiet for protection. And every time I did that, intimacy eroded because I wasn't really revealing myself. I was not speaking my truth. Self-trust is not confidence. You know, it's not about being bold and having those strong opinions. You know, that's what they told us. Self-trust is really the ability to listen to your inner signals and act in alignment with them. This is what is actually coherence, living in coherence. It's trusting your body sensations, your intuition, your emotions, your limits, your decisions, even when they might not make sense to anyone else. And here is the connection most women miss. If you don't trust your inner signals, you will not express them. If you don't express them, you cannot be met. And if you cannot be met, you will feel lonely, even when there's connection. And that loneliness so many midlife women feel, it is often unexpressed truth. I see this all the time with the women that I work with because they ask for approval before making decisions. They second guess, their perspectives. They don't know which voice in their head to trust, because the ego is very loud, fear is loud, the old conditioning in the head is loud, the mind itself is loud. We are used to live in our heads. And we forget about the body. We are barely connected to it. Can you relate to this? So how is it that you can trust yourself if you don't even feel yourself? Many women, they struggle with setting limits. They put themselves at the end of the list. They think that desires, they are too much, or simply they don't feel worthy about having them. And I can really relate to that. And probably you do, because worthiness is a big thing. And when this worthiness is shaky, then self-trust collapses too. Because if you don't believe you deserve something, you won't stand behind that desire that you have. And that's why you tend to shrink. And that shrinking is what kills intimacy. I'm not only talking about romantic relationships again. I'm talking about friendships. I'm talking about conversation with someone that you barely know. I'm talking about even the relationship with yourself. The conversations that you have in your head. Those inner conversations. Are you being vulnerable? Are you being compassionate with yourself? This is another level of intimacy. And there's also this deeper fear in midlife. Because yes, some women are afraid of being alone after being in a long-term relationship, right? We get used to this person, to having a life, to having those dreams all together. And when the relationship comes to an end, there is fear of financial instability. There is fear of carrying everything yourself. And more than that, you might be afraid of being fully seen. Because being seen means expressing desires, setting limits, boundaries. It means disagreeing. And it means saying, this doesn't feel good to me. And if your nervous system is associating this visibility with danger, you will default to people pleasing. This is so freaking common because you tend to overfunction, to control, or trying to manage everyone. I used to do this. And it's so fucking frustrated because we think that control, we have this strength with it, But the truth is that overfunctioning and controlling and managing everything, and trying to manage everyone, it's often simply self-protection. And that self-protection blocks intimacy. And this is what I have noticed with the work that I've done. When women start regulating their nervous system, when they start reconnecting with their body, when they begin practicing self-trust, and again, this is a continuous practice, the first thing that it shifts, they are very, very subtle. And probably if you're already doing the work, you know what I'm talking about. Because this is what happens. The breathing slows, the voice opens, the posture expands, and the eye contact becomes direct and secure. Why is this happening? Because there's more peace, there's more relief, joy, freedom. And suddenly you can stay in a hard conversation without, collapsing and stressing out. Because you can express preference without having to apologize of what's your truth. You can say no without explaining yourself for who knows how long. That's self-trust growing. And when self-trust grows, intimacy deepens naturally. That's what happens. I didn't leave that relationship because love vanished, not at all. I left because at some point, self-trust became more important than the comfort that I was feeling there. It became more important than the potential of that relationship that I had in my head. And even it became more important than the hope I was holding. And that's the shift, because when you start trusting yourself, you stop negotiating your truth for connection. And the intimacy you experience changes. A lot of women try to fix intimacy by fixing relationships. And in that amount of women, I'm included. Because we think that better communication, or we rather, if we can, we better, try to get better partners or better timing. But the truth is, intimacy expands when self-trust expands. That's why inside Home, my membership, we are not teaching you how to get intimacy. We are rebuilding your relationship with yourself. Home, it's a community sanctuary where you reconnect your body, regulate your nervous system, you practice expressing truth safely, and strengthen your inner voice. And this is just the entry point, because when you trust yourself fully and truly, your voice opens, your posture shifts, your presence changes, your joy increases, and your freedom, of course, it expands. And then that intimacy stops feeling like something you are chasing. It becomes something that you can hold. If you are tired of doubting your own intuition, then this work is for you. Because intimacy with others will never exceed the intimacy you have with yourself. And self-trust is the foundation of that intimacy. If you are ready to rebuild that foundation, Home is waiting for you. The details are on the show notes. And I am waiting for you. I want you to feel that trust, that safety from the inside out. That's what I want for you. Thank you so much for your time and your energy. And tell me, what is your take from this episode? And please take a couple of minutes to integrate before passing to the next thing. I appreciate your listening as always, and I'm sending you lots of love. Take care. Thank you for tuning into Midlife Butterfly. I hope this episode empowered you in some way. Share the love by hitting follow wherever you're listening, and leave a review if you feel inspired. I also love to connect with you. Come say hi on Instagram at Midlife Butterfly. I love to know you. Until next time, keep spreading those wings and live in joy, growth, and pleasure.